Look, I'm not sorry. Hello, my fellow hunters. Frontier monsters, rest in peace, are a wonderful ball of weirdness. And today, I kinda need to express myself. I kinda need to let loose. I kinda need to wax lyrical on that ball of weirdness. And before I go into why I need to do that, in case you've been living under a Basarios for the last 10 years, Frontier then is probably the most well-known and popular and played by far of the Monster Hunter spin-offs. It took the form of an MMORPG and had, well, a massive roster of original creatures. One of the early ones were Hypnocatrice and Levisioth. The former we got once, and the latter we sadly keep on getting.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
And by all accounts, those who poured the hours into it had a fantastic time. There was one hell of a lot of grinding to do to unlock everything, there was a hell of a lot of power creep, and there was a hell of a lot of ridiculousness. But under it all, there was a lot of fun to be had. And whether it was successful or not as a game itself, as a venture, as an experience that exists, is not really the point and not something I want to comment on. The monsters themselves, however, certainly are something I want to talk about because monsters are monsters. Monster Hunter monsters are Monster Hunter monsters. And no matter what form, medium, game they occur in, they are invented in, they take place in, I know my Monster Hunter monsters. I know what makes a good one, at least I like to think that I do. I know what a good design looks like, again, at least I like to think that I do. And I'm not saying I am some all-knowing, all-seeing master creature designer. Hire me, Capcom! No, I'm saying that I am a Monster Hunter fan and player with untold amount of hours in the game, and I kinda get it. And you know what? So are you! And you, and everyone watching this. I can't say that many and yous will be here for 3 hours, but the point is, every single one of you watching this, you also know what a good monster is. You also know what a good monster looks like. You also know what a good monster feels like to fight. Yes, there is personal taste. Yes, we have aesthetics that we like and don't like. We have mechanics that we like and don't like. But look, as Monster Hunter fans, we kind of get it on a subconscious level when we face one of these creatures, if it works, if it's good. And most of the time, yeah, they tend to work, they tend to be good. And that's because Capcom put so much meticulous effort into designing, well, every single one of them. From the aesthetics to the behavior to the mechanical fight experience itself, they really are a level above most other experiences. It's hard to look at any other game or series of games and go, yeah, they have as good or better boss-like encounters than a Monster Hunter hunt, because simply, Monster Hunter is peak. You have to go to like the Souls series to have as good of a fight experience, and well, there's a reason the Souls series is also legendarily venerated amongst a lot of, well, gamers. And the reason all of that preamble exists is to finally move on to why I want to talk about monsters in Frontier being wonderfully weird. Is because a lot of them I felt when I first started to learn about them, first started to see them, did not have that meticulous design. A lot of them looked rough and ready, a lot of them seemed a bit too much, a lot of them seemed a bit, well, over the top. And I still believe that, well, a lot of them do fit into those categories. However, I am ashamed to say that was quite the surface level observation, and therefore quite a surface level opinion. When you dig a little bit deeper, and hey, that's why I've been doing a lore series on my favorites over the last however many weeks it's been. But the best way I can describe it is, it's not really about the monsters in Frontier. One I think is actually ridiculously good, and well, what you don't understand with how good some of these monsters are is not the monsters themselves per se, but the ideas that fuel them. And more specifically than I want to say, that the concepts in Monster Hunter Frontier are amazing, and I want to see so many of them rescued, repurposed, and brought forth into modern Monster Hunter. And that is kinda where we find ourselves, because the ideas, irrelevant of their execution, are so wonderfully solid. Let me give you an example then. Unknown. A fantastically popular monster in Frontier, and also a fantastically difficult one, and a fantastically memorable one. But what do you see when you look at Unknown? The black and red Rathian. It's not a black and red Rathian, but let's be honest, it's a black and red Rathian. So when you look at this at a glance, you go, okay, it's a superpowered, flamey black and red Rathian. Woohoo. And it's totally fair to have that initial take, because that's how it presents itself, and it's not doing itself justice doing that. When we go, well, beneath the scales, how Unknown works is it moves through the gears of Enrage. So a Rajang enrages Golden Fur, and then it enrages again Red Arms for 2 layers, 2 levels, 2 modes of Enrage. Unknown then does it up to 7 times, at least in the harder difficulties, and it also never unenrages. So as you fight it, it goes angrier and angrier, unlocking power level after power level after power level that changes up the fight as you go along, never getting easier until you or it is dead. And I think that's a really, really badass concept. And it's a concept that I would love to see in a mainline Monster Hunter game. It's a concept I would love to see brought forward. But would I want to see it brought forward in Black and Red Rathian? Not really. And that's where it's easy to make the disconnect when it comes to Frontier monsters. The ideas are fantastic. The presentation is, to anyone who hasn't actually played the game, kinda lackluster, but not entirely. Later in this little talk here, I want to show you the 5 monsters that I think you could one-to-one put in the main series, and they would be perfect because they're absolutely ridiculously badass awesome. But let's go down this idea list then, and just kind of appreciate the craziness that has been tried in Frontier. And look, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Frontier monsters that I think look awful, but you know, how they actually act, how they are to fight is really cool. I think there's a lot of monsters that look badass, but also don't make that much sense given what we know about how creatures exist, come to be, and are in the world of Monster Hunter. And then there is everything in between. Though I will say, when I say that there's monsters that look like, you know, just train wrecks, despite actually having really cool fights and ideas, that is in 2 parts. The first part is my own personal taste in monsters. I like sleek, simpler designs, right? I like, well, something that's more believable. I like a finesse. I don't like lots going on. I don't like visual clutter. I don't like lots of bits. And that unfortunately tends to be a Frontier hallmark, so it doesn't personally gel with me in a lot of monsters. But also, if we look at the entire series, look at all of the mainline monsters, they tend to also be designed with a simplicity in mind. They don't tend to be overcomplicated. They don't tend to be, well, crazy. Now, I will fully admit that's broken down a little bit in recent games. Even something like Magnamalo as a flagship has a lot going on, and admittedly, I don't actually much like the aesthetic of Magnamalo. It's not like I just apply this to Frontier, I apply it to the mainline monsters that follow a similar design scheme. And while I think Nawa and Ibushi are absolutely just, oh my god, yes, like what the fuck, weird seahorse magnet dragons, okay. Oh, I think they're just, yeah, I'm so happy they exist. It's undeniably that they fall firmly into the category of mental, and indeed into the category of way more mental than a lot of Frontier's mental. So it's hard to stand on any legs of, yep, that's too mental for Monster Hunter, when Nawa and Ibushi have set a brand new sky-high bar of acceptable mentalness, a bar that was recently raised by Xenojiva in just the previous set of games. In any case, then, let's move on to a few more wonderful things. Very surface level, a scorpion monster in Akura Vishimu. A monster who you have to sever the tail by like a 10-step process that's ridiculously complex and hard to pull off. It's a bit too much, but it's a really cool idea, as is just doing a scorpion monster. You have origin species themselves, ancient versions of monsters. Who wants to fight Caveman Rajang?
What?
I mean, I do. Yeah, ancient monsters still living today. That's really just awesome. You have so much ancient civilization lore being expanded upon and given life in the forms of a new tower to explore filled with the most intense dragon going in the Murderer, who is just insane in the best ways as he pumps out corrupted poison and freezes the entire room solid so you can't escape this now cocoon of death. A dragon that uses super nutrients in its tail to instantly grow bamboo that then shoots out the ground that impales your ass. And this I love because it reminds me of torture. Okay, I should clarify that I mean because an old horrific form of torture was to tie someone down and have Baloo sing! Have bamboo grow underneath them, and because bamboo grows so fast, it grows into them, pierces through them and out the other side, and yeah. But monsterifying that? Yeah, that's fantastic. Inugami is great. Magnetism!
Yeah, bitch! Magnets! Oh!
Having monsters that essentially can do what Nawa can do, but way before Nawa existed, yeah, that's really awesome. Frontier's first original Elder Dragon in the form of Rukadiora was really quite awesome, and I love the wing shape and color too. And then we have something like Ray and Lolo Gogarth, two oppositely charged fanged wyverns that fight as like a wrestling pair, using the fact that they can repel and attract each other to perform fantastic feats of combat. That's such a cool idea! A monster that you always fight as a pair, two together, as if every time you hunted Rathalos there was always a Rathian and they were always in the same zone and they had constant bond combo attacks. That's such a really ingenious scrap to be a part of. You have stuff like the Liquid Metal Dragon, who I will fully admit I'm still not the biggest fan of how he actually looks, and I also am not the biggest fan of the idea that a monster could somehow control liquid metal, because there is just no reason or rhyme or precedent for that. But do I think the idea of a monster fighting you with, like, liquid metal is awesome? Yeah, it's awesome! That's what I'm saying, it's all about the ideas. It kind of got to a point where it was like, yeah, I know it's Monster Hunter, I know they're monsters, but fuck it, wouldn't it be cool if it can turn into a metal ball and pinball around the arena and roll you over? Yeah, it would. Alright, let's do it. And you know what? Fair enough, Frontier. Let's do it! A monster that can literally shapeshift its body into 5 different forms depending on how it wants to go about attacking you. I mean, yeah, Miru, pretty damn interesting, and certainly nothing like we have in the main series. I would love the idea of a monster based off like a mimic octopus that can change into different shapes to reflect different other actual monster types and then attack you into other ways. Mimic octopi are just wonderful. I think it's so fascinating seeing how well they quite literally do mimic whole other species. So I can totally get behind that one. So that was a very quick whistle-stop tour, right? There is a lot of monsters in Frontier with a lot going on, and a lot of it is fascinating, and a lot of it I want to see done again in the mainline series and refined further. I think a lot of the aesthetics, a lot of the monsters are not for me, but when I actually drill down into how a lot of them function, I hold my hand up and say, I have been converted, at least partially, because there is a lot of stuff I would be deeply honored to actually get to hunt myself. And if there was 5 monsters I had to pick to be in the main series to just go and pop in, well, it would be thus. Espinas, the main Rathalos-esque flagship of Frontier, a monster so confident in its impenetrable defense it will start always asleep. And then ignore you as you try and wake it up and beat it up, as its thorns, this rose-esque aesthetic, poison, slash, and cripple you as it puts in literally 0 effort. That's just, yeah, like, Yeah, okay, I am totally for that. I love that. I think that's wonderful. Shantien, a storm floating dragon to match a Matsu. And while, again, I think there are a few visual elements that don't really do it for me, the overall package is just wonderful, and I think definitely could be a very compelling main series monster to actually get to fight. A really high tier, impressive, powerful elder dragon, the heavenly flying dragon. A monster that has so many stages, first on a ship, eventually leading to a crash in a volcano, as it then takes on the heat around it, powering it up, but also slowly killing itself as it can't handle that much heat, turning to this golden red, giving one hell of a crescendo to the fight. At this point, I do want to interject that visually how a lot of attacks are represented, like zone-wide, big, graphical, it looks, again, rough. And I don't think Frontier monsters are helped by the graphical limitations of the game they were in. I think a lot of Frontier monsters, if they got to do what they do, but in World and Iceborne or Rise aesthetic, would become a million times better because it would just be presented in a much more smoother, understandable, believable way that isn't quite captured, I feel, in how Frontier be. So I definitely don't think that they were helped by the engine they were constrained to. Next up would be Baruragaru, our blood-eating leviathan, big, long tongue with a lamprey eel type ending, sucks onto you, drinks your blood. Depending on which monster blood he drinks, he gets different abilities. He is gnarly, he is terrifying, and he is just goddamn brilliant. Following that then, we have in second place Torridcless, a moth owl bird wyvern of lightning, who I think is the prettiest monster in Frontier, and something I'm definitely a big fan of. The Shining Thunderbird, and it is one incredibly potent lightning combatant, and can even do flashes and such, and generally is just a really nicely designed monster. And then my winner, my favorite monster in Frontier, I think on balance, at least currently, this might change, is Guanzorumu. He is absolutely special. The fact that he is an elder dragon with his own personal army of winged drake-esque flying wyverns behind him is just sweet. And the fact that he commands them against you, a general ahead of his army, leads them in flame formations along with himself in strafing pattern attacks, the Emperor Conqueror Dragon. He looks gorgeous. His cresty crown horns, the flames on his wing, the gold against the green. He's not too crazy, and he just works absolutely wonderfully. Even his little guys being able to throw you off the mountain is just a lovely little detail, and I kind of like the idea of more one-shot, you're just dead abilities happening. We have a little in like Sapphire of the Emperor and such, but I do like these you fucked up, you're dead, because they really add a lot of stakes to them. So yeah, I wish I could spend more on each of these monsters I'm mentioning, but they definitely are the ones that, well, shine the brightest for me. All of this is to say then that I think Frontier's true strength, Frontier's true goodness, where it truly does glow resplendent, is not in the quite literal monster designs themselves, not in the forms they take, not in how they work as natural creatures, not in any of that. Frontier's strength, and something I admire and in a lot of cases I'm jealous I've never got to fight, is that so many monsters have such a cool, unique hook mechanic that let them work in a way that's unlike anything in the main series that I really appreciate and would love to see more of. The ideas in Frontier are remarkable, and I definitely want to learn more and more as I go forward. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know your favorite Frontier monsters, or even if you like Frontier monsters in general. Some of them are garish, some of them are over the top, some of them are crazy, a lot of the fights are ridiculous, and there's certainly a lot that's not for me. But there is also a lot that's so very cool. And that's what I wanted to get across. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. Please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.